Street lamp flickers on wet stone. You curl beneath a broken phone. One paw lifted, barely there. Two ribs showing through your hair. 3 steps closer through the pour. 4 walls waiting by the door. The thunder hushes as I kneel. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more wandering alone. You are seen, you're not ungone. 5 towels wrapped around your frame. 6 hours calling out your name. 7 breaths slow on the mat. 8 dreams where you don't. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more shadows in your eyes. You've got sunshine in your cry. 11 walks without a leash. 12 meals shared in patient peace. 13 nights you nudge my head. 14 reasons I still stand. Now your heart beats next to mine. Every tremble turns to time. No more counting wounds or fears. You are home and so am I here. chestnut streak fur against cold stone, eyes like embers barely shone. You didn't flinch when I drew near, just held your breath and disappeared. I wrapped you soft in borrowed thread. Your heartbeat whispered, don't let go. Now you run where the wind blows free. No more chains, no empty cage, just sky and me. Every scar you carry sings of how the lost can learn to breathe again. Weeks of quiet, slow repair, stitches fading, trust laid bare. You'd watch my hands with wary grace, then nudge my palm, a timid trace. One dawn you stood without a sound and turned your face towards solid ground. Now you run where the wind blows free. No more chains, no empty cage, just sky and me. Every scar you carry sings of how the lost can learn to breathe again. You taught me courage wears no name, just steady steps.